All
Hey
right, we are
everybody, welcome to
live.
another movie review here. We are here to talk about part two of the Fear Street series on Netflix. This is part two, 1978. And this was a little bit different than the first one, but we got a lot to talk about with this one. Full disclosure, it's been a little while since I've watched this movie. I watched it when it first came out, but some family issues kept Mr. Smith from hopping on with us. But we're here. We're going to talk about this, and then we're going to watch the third one and break that one down as well. So we got some fun stuff to look forward to in that matter right there. I'd like to welcome Mr. Smith here to join us. And so this was a movie, huh?
First of all, you can call me out. You could be like, hey, we were going to do this sooner, but this guy won't get on and do a movie review. It's fine. I totally take responsibility for that. I am on the 4 a.m. to noon shift at work now. My hours always get changed, and it is brutal. All I want to do is sleep now. But I'll say it up front, talking about Fear Street Part 2. I enjoyed this one way more than the first. And I enjoyed the first. I was a fan of the first. If you guys watch our reaction to the first one, I was very taken back and surprised in a good way. But I'm very happy with this film, mainly because of the nostalgia of the summer camp horror theme. I'm a big fan of that because I'm a Friday the 13th fan through and through. So,
well, let's jump right into that because I actually took a little bit to get into this movie. I didn't feel like it hit me right away because it was a lot of tropes, and then you had a lot of characters being thrown at you at once. So it took a little while for me to kind of understand what was going on and why I should like this rebellious little shitty kid, you know?
yeah, there's some rebellion. There's a goody two shoes character. There's another good versus evil kind of hinge here between characters, not just the plot of the movie between the witch. Yeah, there was the level of pettiness and snottiness from the evil characters. Man, it maintained or upped itself through this one. And when I say the bad characters made me hate them, they did a really good job of that because I did not like most of them.
No, I've never been to a camp where one camper will literally burn another person just pretty much for giggles.
Yeah, that was crazy. I guess that town must really be tormented in this whole scenario, but I digress.
Unlike the first movie, this one took place entirely within storytelling. So none of this was happening in the current timeline. We're basically just hearing Ziggy's story of why she is staying in her house and why she's all locked up. And that alone kind of changes how you look at the movie because you know that her character kind of has to survive. You know that something's going on with her and she can't function as a regular person. But there's still a lot of really big question marks about this movie in that respect as well. Why, even though she died and came back, was a big spoiler for anyone that didn't watch. I mean, but you had to know that was what happened based on the movie itself. But why wasn't she turning the way that the other girl that died and came back did?
That's a good question. And that was the only major question mark I had at the end was what was the reasoning behind her getting to come back? Because you don't see that with anyone else. They kind of figured with her sister, she was brutally axed to death. There,
right.
Which we'll talk about the kill scenes in this movie because they were great.
Which again, she didn't touch blood or bones. So why did the monsters pursue her?
Yeah, that strays from the first.
That was our theory from the first movie, and that didn't hold up. So there's something different here. And what we kind of figured from the first one doesn't seem to be the case whatsoever. So maybe the third movie will clear that up. I don't know. But all I know is that our theories as to why people were getting attacked are just not working.
Yeah, they don't line up. They're not symmetric in those ideas. I forget the young black kid's name. It was a great character in the first one, the brother of the main character. But you see him at the beginning of this movie as well. He's listening to the storytelling. They take her girlfriend from the main character. I'm sorry, I don't remember the names, guys. I literally crammed this in so we could do this show on time today. But you see them, just as a spoiler, in case for whatever reason you're watching this and you haven't seen it yourself. But main girlfriend's character, or the main character's girlfriend from the first, is possessed, and you see them at the beginning looking for help, which I thought was, I don't know, it was kind of a weird, mysterious thing to do, to just kind of reach out, but they're desperate. And yeah, I don't see that from him. He was not pursued in that chase scene in the woods from the first one, and now that you're bringing this up, it makes total sense as why there could be confusion on what the rules are. What exactly does this witch go after, and what are the boundaries? There have to be boundaries, otherwise it would just be a mass killing spree of everyone. But it seems to be whoever comes in touch with her remains or bleeds on them or whatever, that's the pathway. I mean, that's what you've collected, right?
That's exactly what I came up with, and from watching the first movie, but it doesn't really seem to be the case whatsoever. And let's talk about some of these performances here, because of course, I think you and I both enjoy Community, so seeing Gillian Jacobs in that role is pretty cool, as being the adult Ziggy. And otherwise, there hasn't been a lot of stars in these movies,
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think that's a plus. I don't really, when I watch a horror movie, sometimes seeing big stars in it can distract me and make me think of their other roles and everything. And that is kind of a little bit what happened here, but not to the extent that it was detracting from the movie itself. So that was kind of a positive there. But yeah, it's really strange how this movie went about, because the witch's curse is something that we got to see actually enacted in this one with Major Tom, the woodsman.
Yeah.
And we got to see his origin story, which now we know that we've seen his, and we're going to probably see another one in this next movie.
Yep.
And why these people are chosen is strange.
Yeah. I guess thinking about the nurse, as to why she got a hold of him, I don't know. I guess in the book, that's who Sarah was calling out from, since the nurse was obviously possessed. And I like how there's a slow build. It's not like my favorite horror movie that's in the last 10, 20 years is Conjuring, and that possession takes place immediately. It's a slow build. You see certain things physically, but when in that movie she hovers over and transfers in, cool. This is a slow burn, you start to hear things, you start to see things, and then finally she just loses it. And it was really crazy that his name was on the wall. Now, maybe I missed something there. I'm not sure why his name was on the wall and why he had to be it. But I will say, on the flip side, for Tom and his character, I loved how you get to see him kind of like an early Jason. You get to see, obviously not his face pertaining to Jason, but you get to see where the mask comes in and how it comes in. And it's very realistic. And I appreciate the little stuff like that in a movie. She's trying to defend herself. And I thought that was really cool. I was like, oh my gosh, there it is. There's his mask. That's so cool. Those little nuances hook me into slashers like this.
Another thing from this movie that I really enjoyed was how they characterized Nick Good. Nick Good, of course, was the police officer in the first movie as the adult, and we got to see his origin story as well. And now it makes a lot more sense as to why he was acting the way he did, why he slipped the note to adult Ziggy in her house, and why she would want that information about it's happening again and all that. So it cleared up a lot of those questions from the first film, and it showed a lot about the relationship that he had with not only the town and his family, but the relation to this witch's curse as well. And for me, that was probably the highlight of this movie.
Oh, his backstory.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you guys haven't watched yet, hopefully you will. There's such a tortured past, and I think we all go through something like this on some level, trying to live up to expectations, parents' expectations, trying to make that decision. And ultimately in the movie, I won't spoil this part for you, but he has to make a pretty gruesome decision, which you can tell he's not happy with himself, but he goes down that fork in the road. He can go left or right, so he chose to go the opposite way. But I enjoyed that as well. That's a very good point of seeing kind of the internal dilemma and struggle, and seeing him start out one way with other characters and then end up ultimately going a different way.
Yeah, you kind of felt it in your heart a little bit when he had to make the decision to take off in that bus and leave some people behind when he didn't want to.
Right. And that gives hope for later. If you're going to start looking at maybe premonitions and looking in the future, that gives me hope that, that he would have done something nice going forward, because at the end you did hear a radio call, and maybe that'll tie into, the beginning of this movie was all, up to the storytelling like you were talking about. So maybe in the third, when we figure out, what happened 100 or a couple hundred years prior, maybe that'll show that he had some goodness in his heart, because he said he would take care of it, which I thought was really nice. He knew exactly what that call was about, and he gets dispatched. So I'm excited to see how the conversation goes, and then that's fun.
Yeah, his questioning in that first movie of everybody that was involved, all he wanted them to do was be honest with them so he could get some sort of confirmation, get more information, and he couldn't get any information about this witch or the curse or anything, because they all knew they'd sound insane. But the fact that if they were completely honest and told their story, he'd have 100% understood and believed them. That alone is mind-blowing.
Right.
But yeah, this movie, if you are into the classic slasher movies, there was a lot to really love in there. There was some cool nods to a lot of great horror films. You've already mentioned Friday the 13th, which is pretty cool. There's some Evil Dead ones with hands and the book readings and everything. If you love those movies, you'll get some nice nods and some nice, cool understanding things. But, okay, so another thing I don't understand from this movie is, so someone built this weird underground tunnel system with this big witch stone that's under the ground, and it leads to porta potties and camps, and I don't know.
I thought that was especially funny.
But I don't really understand
right up to the
how
crapper in the outhouse.
But what was that big slimy monster thing underground?
Okay, so I'm glad you brought this up, because I wanted to talk about this too. Again, I'm making a Jason reference just because I grew up on Child's Play, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th. Shout out to Freddy Krueger too. I had a nightmare this week and he was in it. That was crazy. Terrifying, actually. But you remember Jason? Well, it wasn't Jason X. Jason X was in space. Which one was it? Jason Goes to Hell. Remember how his heart gets transferred around? That's immediately what I thought about. and it was like,
you're talking about my least favorite in the entire Friday the 13th series.
It's so
the one where they made
so
Jason into that weird little personality or monster slug thing.
Right. It's kind of the same way. I thought that was the heartbeat of Sarah, based on whatever significant event happened here at camp, which is weird because we find out later that the hanging tree was at the mall. I guess the hanging tree is where that is. Never mind. I'm piecing it together now. So the hanging tree is around camp in 1978. And I guess that's like the heartbeat of where she is, but I don't know why it wouldn't be where her remains were. I don't know. I have no idea. I just thought it was really funny and kind of cheesy because it was like a blob that turned into a person. And then it eventually molded into the people that were going out killing for her.
But when I think about this, my first thought was they built a mall around a tree.
Yeah. and a tree like that too, that has such negative energy. They built a whole like establishment around it.
But what I'm wondering is, was that tree taken from that location and moved there by that other town to kind of keep the curse away from them?
Oh, wow. That's a great point. Wow. Yeah, there's such a rivalry here. It's nasty.
Those two towns hate each other. So a move like that wouldn't really surprise me. But that's the only thing I can really figure is that since they were able to put the body together where they found the bones and it didn't put anybody to rest, you've got to think that that's not the location where they got to do it.
Right. And this was explained, as Adam is saying, in the film. The main characters are talking to each other from the first movie, and now going back in the past, we find out that one of the main characters from part 2 is still alive. They're having a discussion and a dispute.
I don't know how she survived.
Somehow she was granted to stay, but we're finding out that they're arguing over the location and where Sarah Fear is going to be, and you might be onto something really good. I don't know that. I know there's a following about this, but man, that would be so cool if.
Oh, hey, King Godzilla. Welcome to the chat here. We have not watched the third movie yet, so if you know the answers to some of the questions that we're asking, please don't spoil it for us, because we're going to come back as soon as Mr. Smith here watches the third one, and we'll
get it done this weekend. I'm off Saturday and Sunday. We will make it happen.
We will make that happen. It's going to be a lot of fun. So
I'm excited for it too. The way that they led into, and I don't know if it was a preview just from Netflix or they were gonna, if it was just part of the ending of the second. But I'm very excited about this third film because of just the time setting. Everything is so much scarier when you take away electricity and you go back a couple hundred years.
Now, I'll admit, when I saw the times of these movies, I thought it was all going to be like a linear 1978, 1966. When they did the 1666, which, credit to them for the 666 reference in there. Why not?
Right.
But yeah, I didn't see 1666 coming, so that'll be fun. There are some really cool theories about how she didn't die, with whether she was able to, whether her hand was severed while she was dying, and she kind of fed into the witch's thing. I don't know. But yeah, watching the good sister have her just body torn open while the other sister was able to come back, it was strange.
Yeah, you felt bad too. I mean, we need that in horror movies sometimes. It can't all be rainbows and happy endings. I thought the main character for this movie, the good sister, and I'll stop trying to give descriptions of characters. I'll IMDb this so I don't sound totally stupid here. But yes, we're looking at Emily Rudd. She plays Cindy Berman. So Emily's character, Cindy, she does a great job in this movie of trying to hold good together and trying to find light in such a crappy town and this cloud that hangs over them. And I was really bummed out that she's not going to be there. And then not only is she a great, cute lead character, but I thought she did pretty good, just overall of selling that role. And I was kind of bummed out that she's not going to be in it again. But I liked seeing the backstory of Ziggy and how she's progressed to an adult. And now she has all these mannerisms of alarm clocks all the time and how much it's really messed with her over the years. And somehow she's still here.
That is really true. Now, I just, when you look at what the sisters were trying to do, it makes you wonder how much of this is a time situation, because when Ziggy and her sister were trying to bury the hand with the body that they were burying, that they were digging up or trying to dig up, wasn't hers. It was actually theirs.
Yeah.
So we're going to see some sort of weird time shifting here to go with the monsters and everything else that's going on. So this is quite an involved series of monsters and sci-fi and horror, and it's a lot to take in at once. It really is. Because now we've got this cliffhanger tease where the people are transporting into the past, and we're not sure what to think about what they got transported to, how they transported, or what's going on. So I'm really confused because Dina, the brown-haired girl from the first movie,
Yep.
she's in Sarah's body now, right?
Yeah, that's the premise, and that's why she was handcuffed to the heater. It's crazy she would have such a role in the first, a very minor in the second, and who knows how much of a role she's going to have in the third, because we still don't know. As far as we know, she's still handcuffed to a heater in a bathroom. And a very not secured door, by the way.
No. And I don't know what kind of house that Ziggy it has in her, whatever glass she has, but whatever wants in or out, just locking the window with that little turn key, that ain't going to keep anything out.
Yeah, I love
Really
the explanation from the young guy at the beginning. He's like, she's totally locked up. She can't go anywhere. And then you just hear like a demonic screech from the other room. It's like, yeah, okay, bud. It's not going to stay there for long.
So what's this time jumping thing? It makes you wonder even more. Is it possible for them, even if they are able to go in and put the body the way it is, with all these stops in the time continuum, and they are able to stop the witch in 94 or 78 or whatever? I guess this is why they have to go back to the origin of the whole thing to stop it, because otherwise you'd think that the witch would be able to just go back and make changes. Because this is some sort of intelligent witch here of some sort, because she won't have people that came back to life being there for being her next servants. Because right now she's only got 3 servants, right?
I believe so.
The woodsman, the crying girl, and
I saw 2 different guys. I saw a guy with a bat and then another guy with a knife. He looked like an old 50s mechanic or something like that. So maybe 4. Because there was a shorter guy with a bat and a mask, if I remember.
At least the list was a little longer in the second one. Saw a few more names on there. Not that I may have missed it in the first one, but yeah, I really hope to get a little bit more clarification on all that, because it really didn't make a lot of sense to me. But let's talk a little bit more about some of these things here. Let's see. Oh yeah, the outhouse scene. I like to try to suspend some disbelief, but that's not really how outhouses work.
Yeah, no, I can tell you from digging them in the overseas in the military, that's not how outhouses work. If you were going to go through that much trouble to dig that big of a hole, you should just put in plumbing. Actually, the way it worked, and that underground tunnel issue by whatever it was, yet again, that's another Jason reference, because in the remake in 2009, he has this underground tunnel going under everything at Crystal Lake, which I thought was funny. There's a lot of little hints there. I don't know if they tie together or whoever did this was a Jason fan, but I was, every time I saw stuff like that, I was like, that's in a Jason movie. But yeah, that's not how those work. And I thought it was super funny. I mean, how funny is that when you're reading the script and you're young Ziggy, and you're like, all right, now you're going to stick your head down a toilet seat and you're going to see your sister down in a hole.
But yeah, the way that killer came in, just slashed that kid, and he went down the toilet hole, I couldn't help but laugh so hard. So hard.
Good kills.
But I love the banter of the 2 characters that were down in the underground caverns, because it was such a I believe versus I don't believe kind of thing, and the light versus dark, hope versus darkness. And of course they had hope win when they were down in there. So yeah, it was, there's a lot of really strange side stories going on in here at the same time as the main topic. And it's hard to connect them all and try to figure out what everything is that's going on. And I bet that's why they tried to split it into a 3-part series. I don't know how these books are divided up, but the way they did this was actually really cool. And the fact they were able to put out all 3 movies, like boom, 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 really helped the way that this was marketed so that people could follow it and just enjoy it.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see. Sorry, my allergies are kicking up a little bit. I'll be interested to see when they filmed this, because if they did all this at any point during COVID and then thought they were going to throw it out in the summer, which is the best time for horror movies, summer and fall, that's a genius marketing plan.
Once again, we got from that first movie, one of the main things was drugs, and again in this movie we got a lot more of the anti and pro drug thing. So I don't know if this is a theme from the kids' books to try to scare people off drugs. I thought it was kind of funny that the drugs that were found were it was aspirin or Tylenol or something.
Yeah, it's acetaminophen. It's Tylenol. It's Motrin. It's Advil. Just a simple headache medicine.
So I thought that was kind of funny after how much hardcore the first movie went into recreational drug use. So for them to do that in this film kind of made me giggle a little bit.
Also, it would be remiss for me, being the musician here on the show, if I didn't shout out the soundtrack. Once again, much like when you watch Forrest Gump, you get to hear all the great music that came out during that era, and specifically where they're at in that point in time. You start out in 1994 in this one. You hear Nirvana on the live tapes. I grew up listening to that record. I loved watching those acoustic sessions on MTV. And then you go back into the 70s, and I'm hearing Foghat and Kansas and all these great popular classic rock songs. Soundtrack to me is on point, so shout out to
as a big Bowie fan. It was cool to see characters named after Bowie and a lot of Bowie music. I thought that was really cool as well. The soundtrack of these movies has been fantastic. I gotta admit, I don't know what songs were out in 1666, but I guess we'll find out.
I'm gonna guess they were very simple.
But yeah, they've already announced that all these movies have their soundtracks coming out on vinyl. And I'm interested to see that as well, because they're going to seem like greatest hits soundtracks from the generation, especially for me, that 94 and even 78 had some really cool stuff.
Yeah, I'm very excited. If I'm impressed by the third one as much as I was, continually it gets more, I will definitely have to purchase those. I didn't know that. That's cool.
All right, so I didn't make a lot of notes about this movie. A lot of the notes I made kind of throughout the movie, as far as questions, got answered very quickly at the end when they had a lot of the reveals as to the hand and the body and the teleporting and everything. So those are all things that I know we've kind of got to wait for. But yeah, the Stephen King stuff as well. I read Stephen King as a younger guy, so hearing them talk about a lot of those books that were released at that time was pretty cool. Let's see what else I had here. Oh yeah. So if you misbehave, you're automatically a witch.
I was about to say, it's classic, especially summer camp horror movie stuff. If you have sex or do drugs, you're going to die. So kids, stay abstinent and stay sober.
Now, this movie also had a little bit of skin. There was actually a sex scene in this one. And not quite as awkward because everybody seemed legal age. So,
the counselors, barely legal, but they made it, which thank God it wasn't the kids there. But man, I noticed that too. But you're right. A lot more bearable versus the first one, which
I felt so creepy watching that first part of that first
Adam
movie.
And I are in our 30s, and we don't appreciate feeling awkward when we were just innocently trying to watch a slasher movie.
I was just hoping nobody was going to pull up in the driveway or something and see the TV from the window or something. Be like, oh boy,
Thankfully,
now I
I'm in
got
an
a lot to
apartment, but still,
explain.
if you have a good conscience, you got to feel a little bit like, ugh, I'm not here for that part of it, but I know it's part of the story.
Right. And I get the evolving of the love stories and everything. And honestly, that sex scene in this movie felt a little bit more gratuitous and unnecessary. But
Yeah.
that's what horror movies were back in the day. It was slashers and boobs. That's what it was.
Yep, you're going to get a random tit shot in all those movies. That's the whole reason that I watched them when I was 12.
And they're still so much fun. Like I said, of all the notes I made, most of them were about the origin of the sheriff, the connections to the main character telling the story in part 2. Now, part 3 is going to change things up a little bit because we're no longer going to get the storytelling, because I think this is going to be a present time body transfer to the past. I don't think
that's
this
what
is
we saw
going to
at the
be
end.
like, yeah, but I think that this is still going to be in the normal timeline. I think that the people are going to be sort of unconscious and time's still going to move in the third film, unless this is some sort of time pause thing or a time shift. I'm going to go with a time pause because I don't think that they're going to shift it all the way back to 1666 since the bodies didn't transfer in any way, but they couldn't do a body transfer to put Dina into Sarah's body without doing I don't know. The rules of these movies so far, like I said, they need some clarifying, but as a whole, it took me a little while to get into this movie. Once I did, I really started enjoying it. And I thought this was going to be my favorite right off the bat. And honestly, that first movie, I think, is still my favorite because of the chase scenes in the school and all that. But this was another really solid movie, and I'm glad I watched it, and I will be watching the third one. So if I were to go with a 1 to 10 rating on something like this, I'll give this one a solid 7.5 to 8ish, somewhere in there.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. I thought you were going to go like more of the 6 area. Yeah, I would do the same. I give this film a 7 out of 10. I like the first one as well. I'd give it the same rating. I think I can like this one more than the other and still have the same rating just because it gives me a little nostalgia. But I'm hoping that they answer questions like they have between each film. And I like that they don't just make it blatantly obvious. Sometimes you have to think a little bit. Sometimes you have to wait for it. We're so impatient in 2021 for answers and give me everything now. I appreciated the slow build of this one. And yeah, keep on rocking with the great music. And let's go back in time. Like I said earlier, and I stand by this, if you take out electricity and modern technology, shit gets a lot scarier than it
Absolutely.
is now. And I am really excited for that because I know it's going to be creepy.
For sure. 1666, I don't know what to expect from it, but they have revealed that the people who made these movies want to keep going. They want to keep making more and more of these Fear Street things, and they want to. They've gone on record saying they want to make it almost an MCU kind of thing. So we might see a lot more movies either based off Fear Street or split off from Fear Street. And from what I've seen, I'd be fine with that.
So far, yeah, I'm sold on it.
I know we're only 2 movies deep, but so far so good, right?
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm really glad you suggested this, man. And I'm like I said last time, I was so appreciative. I'm just glad to do this. I've always wanted to do this stuff, but I didn't want to do it on my own. So I'm glad you can let me ride your coattails and.
Well, we're going to be doing these reviews as kind of a usual thing, sticking with horror. And once these 3 movies are up, we'll find something else that, well, hopefully a new release. Maybe we'll go dive in deep if there's something that has like a big anniversary coming up or something, that would be fun. But otherwise, we'll probably stick to the newer horror movies. But yeah, I have fun watching these, and I feel bad that I'm still a little bit not remembering everything very clearly since it's been a little while. But it still stuck with me enough to where I remembered a lot of the things that I haven't remembered from other things I've watched at this time. So it's real good. I mean, it's not like I've been distracted a little bit with the new Superfan episodes of The Office or anything.
That couldn't be it.
No. But yeah, thank you for stopping in. If you did, thank you for watching. I really do appreciate that. We'll be back after we get done watching the third movie in the series, and we're going to come back to talk about it. So I hope you come back as well. We got Silky Johns here and King Godzilla, and everybody just hanging out, and I love it. I absolutely love it. So yeah, you can catch. There will be over on my YouTube channel. It'll keep both part 1 and part 2 if you want to watch that. I've also got a couple of my video game videos and things like that over there, so you can check those out. Otherwise, Twitch is a good place to come and say hi and hang out. Otherwise, yeah, it's been great talking about these movies. Do you have anything you want to close with?
Stay tuned. I won't give a guaranteed date, but I am off tomorrow and Sunday. So I think we're going to do the Purple People pod here shortly, and we'll have time this weekend. And I'm very looking forward to watching this third part. So it'll be back sooner than later.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to that. Thanks again for everyone who stopped by. And yeah, stay bloody.